All right. Welcome to the Memberverse podcast, where we interview people who are making a real impact on the growth of the fitness industry. I'm your host, Dave Pancham, CEO of Go Pancham, your fitness marketing agency for freeing up your time and increasing your bottom line. Today's guest is Rayme Gorniak, a fitness industry veteran and a performance manager for F45 Training with extensive experience in helping gym owners to maximize their potential both in and outside of the gym. Rayme has spent years working with gyms, coaching owners, and refining strategies for growth and operational excellence. Rayme, thanks for being here today. To kick it off, would you mind giving us a bit of your origin story as far back as you feel like you need to go to telling us how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Dave. I really look forward to this chat, and I think it's going to be some really valuable information. Yeah, happy to chat about my journey, chat about where I came from. I don't want to give too much. It makes me feel old when I go too far back, but it's really the only industry that I've ever known. I started in campus rec when I was a kinesiology major in school as a personal trainer. Started to explore what I wanted to do, and I went into personal training, but I had a really unique opportunity to work for a hospital-based fitness center. So I ended up doing like a lot of clinical approach to fitness. So it wasn't just aesthetic at that time. And it ignited this fire in me that I wanted to continue to do this and helping members and helping people. So I went into everything. I was folding towels. I checked people in. I was selling memberships. I was personal training because I just wanted to learn this industry. Fast forward a few years later, I started to work for a big box operation. So I went with Equinox and worked my way into regional management, where I had the opportunity to not only help members, but help staff. So really take people under my wing, develop them, lead them, and make high performing teams. And that's where everything started, and where I found my feet, found my wings, and started to go. Like in the management or in fitness, that's my wheelhouse. People are my wheelhouse. And if we can develop the right people and develop systems around those people, we're going to see success. Fortunately, I had the opportunity to come to F45 a few years ago, and it just slotted in perfectly with what I wanted to do, and helping people realize their dreams, because that's just like personal training. But now we're doing it on a grander scale for people who are business owners, and some of them are first-time business owners. So navigating around that, and it's been really fun. Not without challenges, but it has been really fun and rewarding for me. And hopefully all the studios that I've gotten the opportunity to work with have seen benefit from it as well.
Yeah. So you're amplifying your impact by helping those who are making the impact now.
Yes. It's like a pay it forward opportunity, right?
Yeah. What did you take from, now, because you're basically working with small studios, essentially, what did you find to be some of the things that were the most translatable from, working with big box to going into boutique?
Yeah. If we look at it and we boil it down, it really does all root in people. If you have good communication skills and you can communicate what you want to people, and it's crystal clear to them, and then also almost recruiting them to come along with you on the ride and build a vision, I feel like we'd be unstoppable. So starting with the people, starting with hiring the right people, starting with training the right people, and then developing them so that they feel valued. We know in the industry, and in any industry really, but especially in the fitness industry, that finding people, replacing people is not easy. And it eats up a lot of our time. It can be quite expensive, whether it's finance or energy, and time and energy. If we can just maintain a staff, and not staff, but like have partners in the project, we will see success. Then moving into systems and processes as well too. But if you can match those people to systems and processes, I think we would be successful.
You hit on a word that I feel like can be, people's definitions might be so different from one another, which is communication. What does good communication look like actually in an organization, in your opinion?
Yeah. Is that a loaded question? I kind of think it's a loaded question. It's a good loaded question. We're very starved. I think as a whole, Americans are starved. Well, I mean, maybe everyone, but Americans specifically are starved for human interaction. So we're inundated with media, and we can talk about what that looks like for in the advertising world, marketing world, but we're inundated with media, and it's really easy to fire off a text message. It's really easy to communicate via text or email or some sort of medium that allows us to be behind a bit of a curtain. For me, leaning into face-to-face communication is not always easy, but the result out of it, most everyone is walking away with a crystal clear idea of the severity of the sentiment because they're face to face. So not shying away from those hard conversations is one point for clear and open communication. And I think communicating early, like getting everything out in the open early, especially when it involves people's working environments, because they want to do good as well. They want to come into work and they want to feel valued. They want to feel like they're doing something, and they like good, and they want to enjoy it. So being really crystal clear with expectations and goals from the beginning, then everyone's on an even playing field. Constantly having these conversations are going to make it easier when there are difficult conversations. Sharing good as well as bad. There's a lot of elements that go into the communication. I don't know if it's a bullet list, unfortunately, but I think if you think it's right with communication, you are right, and it is right, and I think that's where people will have success if they move down that.
Definitely one of the key challenges I think every business owner faces in some way, shape, or form. And as I understand, you work with hundreds of studios, right? So what are you typically seeing as some of the key challenges that you're walking into to help a studio out with?
If I look at operationally, great question, really. Because if I look at operationally, a lot of owners want to do everything. This is oftentimes their baby, and they're entrepreneurs, and they get really excited about it. And they're coming in hot, and they're gonna do everything. I'm gonna run marketing. I'm going to be the head coach. I'm gonna manage operations. I'm gonna do business partnerships, on the weekends, and then I also have a life outside of this. Maybe I'm married with kids. Maybe I've got dogs and pets and things like that. So this is a big undertaking when opening up a business, even though we're in the franchise business. So it's, a lot of the nuts and bolts are taken care of for some of these owners, but it's still a big undertaking. So I think from the onset, owners or these entrepreneurs thinking that they can do everything, and not understanding what their wheelhouse really is and what they want to excel at. I'm a firm believer on vendor out the things that you don't want to do, or vendor out, let's find somebody that can do what you are not good at. And is that accounting? Sure, I'm just going to do an accountant. Is it? Let's find somebody that can do that so that I can continue to do what I do well and not be, pulled in a million different directions and then not succeeding at anything. I think the other side as well, is staffing, is because staffing is so competitive, or recruitment is so competitive in the industry right now. It's about finding the right people, and that does eat up a lot of time. It really does, and energy. And I think if we can get the staffing right from the beginning, we will have less problems in the future. We're always going to have somebody leave. They're going to realize their dreams. They're going to move across country. Maybe they're going to get burned out eventually. Those things are natural, but if we can keep them longer in the business and be partners in the project, it will be so much easier for us.
What about, I'm sure every gym owner, the biggest thing is always just like growth. How do I keep on growing, right? And I'm sure with the amount of conversations that you've probably had across the board here, you recognize a lot of times it's kind of the owner that's getting in their own way of their own growth here. What are you seeing as how is it they are typically getting in their own way and holding themselves back?
Yeah, I often say I want the owners that I work with to work on the business, not in the business. It's really easy to get in the weeds. It's really easy to get caught up in, potential member issues on is the 9 a.m. class the exact class? Maybe it should go to 9:15, and then and sure, if you feel like it's necessary as an owner to get on the phone with or speak to some members who are recommending this, yeah, absolutely. But it really is getting in the weeds. And I think if we can find the right people who can manage that, we'll be in better shape. But working on the business is something I think we lose sight of. And I'm guilty of it as well too. If I get too bogged down, it's hard to see, like it's really clouded. So having owners focus on time that they can work on the business, and whether that is staff development, whether that is coming up with a marketing plan for an entire year, whether that is a financial model for that's broken down quarterly, so that an owner can say, well, I want to reinvest in my business. I need to repaint the studio, or want to add more equipment. I need to reinvest, but how am I going to get there? So spending that time to work on the business and then come up with a plan to execute is one thing that I would absolutely tell any business owner, especially in fitness, to make sure that time is carved out.
And so how do you typically go about trying to help a gym or a studio owner like improve their overall performance, growth, operations? Like do you have a process? Like what does that typically look like? Or how do they, if they were someone looking at this and wants to do their own self-assessment, where do they figure out their own 80-20? I'm like, I need to go focus on this thing.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's rapport building in my business as well too, just like personal training. I want to figure out what they actually want to get out of their their investment here. So I will spend time figuring out where they came from. I also like to figure out like not only like how they got here, but what industries they were in. If I can draw parallels to an industry that I may understand, or kind of like on a general level, draw parallels to something that they are familiar with, I think that the information or the coaching kind of resonates a little bit more, or it settles in a bit more. But I want to figure out what they're looking for, where they want to go. And then we really start to like open up doors and open up windows and look at all aspects of the business. What KPIs they're measuring, what if they know how to measure that, where to find that information, because we know that that's sometimes an issue as well too, of like gathering that information, and then work with the owner to kind of come up with a plan or a current state that should connect to where they want to go. Hopefully where they want to go is reasonable or at least realistic. And then we can agree on a plan that they're going to get there, that we can go to get there. Again, I probably will repeat myself a lot, Dave, on this, but it's people and process. So if we can kind of look at, okay, where are the shortfalls? And then is it process? And then start to build those strategies to not fix, but enhance those two elements. If we can get there, I think they'll kind of work cohesively. Then this owner's not working in the business, that now they're actually are working on the business. And if they can realize, oh, okay, this is where I should have been from the beginning, or this is exactly what I thought business ownership was going to be like, because I can just spin the plates and not walk away, but spin the plates and know that that's good, and then go focus on something else and be able to work that funnel, I think is the ultimate goal for most owners.
How often do you find gym owners actually know their numbers?
If I were honest, I'd have to say 50%. And even then, sometimes 50% may be a little bit generous. Where I think that stems is a lot of enough software platforms don't really give the greatest information, and they're not built around the user experience for an owner or for a leader in the business. So that's nothing I can fix now, and absolutely, but there are ways to find that information. I'm old school. I've been in the industry for a long time. If I need to do it pen and paper, I'll do it pen and paper because I trust the pen and paper. But I think being able to find where that information is critical. And then also knowing what levers to pull if the information, once they get the information. So I think that's something that some new people coming into the industry and seasoned veterans really almost don't understand. If they're saying, well, my leads are down, I don't know what to do to fix it. Or they may not even know that the leads are down. They think that, 25 leads a month is ample. And, maybe not getting into numbers here, but like they think that that's perfectly fine and that will build their sustainable business. But when they actually kind of look at the business and analyze the KPIs, that's insufficient. So they start to work on targets that are not realistic or not going to be, like ripe for growth.
You hit on, like you mentioned, pencil and paper, right? That's because when you say pencil and paper, I'm like, let's simplify things here, right? So if you're really simplifying things for any owner, it's like, what are the numbers that I really should be paying attention to here?
Yeah. I think if we look at the sales funnel, it sounds simple. It sounds easy. And, there will be people that will be like, well, that's easy. That's simple. But it kind of is. But then we have to like go a few layers down and then it may get a little bit more complex. But if we're looking at the lead funnel, I go lead volume, or how many people are coming into your ecosystem. I want to count that. So I want to know that number. And then I want to know how many people have taken the next step. And if we're going to use the example for fitness studios or gyms, how many people have stepped foot into the studio? How many people have experienced your product? I think if we count those numbers, we'll be able to find a ratio between the two and understanding what's normal for the industry, what's normal for that specific concept, that specific modality, or even that specific market. Then how many people have, like I call it shots on goal, how many of those people have actually been presented options to stay with me? So to actually give me money and be part of my world on a more permanent basis. That's really it. Like that's the top of the funnel. And I know it sounds like, okay, well, that's easy. There are lots of nuances within those numbers, but I want to know volume of leads, how many people are coming through my doors, and how many people have presented membership or presented options to stay with me, and how many people have actually taken me up. Once they're members, I definitely am looking at how long they're staying and maybe how much money they're spending with me. But for the top of the sales funnel, those are the 4 metrics I look at.
Keep it really simple.
Yeah.
With your wealth of experience in all the different studios that you work with, when you look across that business, when you look at the top 10% of locations, what do you typically see that they are doing? I'm sure a certain extent of it is like they're just doing the basics really, really well, religiously, right? And with consistency. But I mean, maybe one point is that it's like, what are the things that you're seeing that they are consistently doing that others are failing to do? And maybe are there any things that they might be doing differently that you don't see others doing that you're like, man, if everybody did this, they'd be in such a better position?
Yeah, good question. So the highest performers, and whether it's in my brand or beyond, are the ones that have a system. Everyone knows, and if I use that lead funnel that I just talked about, everyone on the team knows what to do when a lead comes in to our ecosystem. And everyone knows what the tasks are to get them into the studio or get them into experience the product. Everyone is fully aware of what the next steps are to present memberships or some sort of like longevity option for them. And then everyone is fully aware of how to set them up on a membership, sell them a class pack, get them on some sort of recurring billing or whatever the goal is for this sales process. So not only does everyone know this in these top performers, but it never misses. It's a system that is tried and true, is built, and that is the SOP. That's the expectation come into these top to work with these top performers. It sounds simple of just playing like doing the play versus, changing it too frequently, or versus not sharing that information from the top, or having one point of failure. It is really just having the system in place and doing it and executing that system.
Having a system and just being religious about it and making sure that it's always executed the same
Yeah.
exact way every
Yeah.
single time. Yeah. Anything that you've ever noticed that like you feel like certain studios just have done better than others when you look at these top 10% of studios?
Yeah. I sigh because, you know, we're in sales. Some people think sales is a 4-letter word, or it's dangerous or something like that. I may agree sometimes, but if we just look at finding what somebody wants to do and then presenting them options and being genuine about it, it takes away the sales element, that 4-letter word. What I find that misses, even in really tight sales processes, the thing that misses the most is people just asking. People just asking for money, and not so much like asking for money, but like asking for the sale, asking for inviting somebody to be part of your world. Mm-hmm. Most people are really tight with their credit card, really tight with, that's why they have it in their wallet. They don't just have it hanging around their neck, right? Most people are not going to run to us with money in their hands and say, I want to give you money. We have to convince them that this is a value to them and this is going to help their hurdle, their issue, this is going to be a problem solver for them. Once we do that, we have to ask for the sale. And the studios that miss forget to ask for the sale. Mm-hmm. And you would be surprised at how many times you ask for the sale and people go, yeah, okay, let me get my card.
Do you think they're forgetting to ask, or they are scared and running away from asking?
It is. So I use an analogy. It's like a schoolyard crush where you see, a boy pull the girl's hair and run away because he actually likes her. And that's, that's the schoolyard crush. Whereas, people are afraid. You know what they're afraid of? They're afraid to hear no. They're afraid of rejection. And we're all afraid of rejection. Nobody wants to be rejected, whether it's a date or, or a membership or a sales conversation. Living in that discomfort will help salespeople 100%. But understanding, I think also navigating what happens if you do hear the no. What do you do? It's never personal. And sometimes you could lean into that and say, well, what did I do wrong? I thought this was the right option. Where did I miss? And then we start to rebuild rapport. Nothing is forever. We can always rebuild something if we do hear a no. But what's the best that can happen? They can say yes. And then we have a member and we have somebody that's committed to being part of our studio or our gym. Yeah, I just think they are definitely afraid. And that's where it comes from. And it's fear of rejection at that point.
That's something we find across the board with many different clients that we work with, where they just struggle with sales. And the funny thing is that when you look at it, it's like you're not even really struggling with sales. You're struggling with just even having a sales conversation. It's not like, oh, you're getting hit with all these objections that you can't handle. It's like you're not even asking somebody if they want to sign up, which is the big thing over here. And more often than not, it's usually not the owner. It's usually like the team, right? The owner's like they're invested in this business. They're like, I need to make these membership sales. But how do you like try to coach an owner to like get their team to make this like a normal practice? Like, what is the process just there?
Yeah. So most owners coming into our world are fitness people. So they understand fitness. And I run the parallel with, how do you get better at deadlifts? You do deadlifts. You just continue to do deadlifts, and you take the bad deadlift and you make it better if it's not good. You just get better. It becomes reps. So if I can convince an owner to see it that way, they know that we need to get reps, the sales reps under our belt. And whether that's actual role play conversations, or sales training, like actual like dedicated sales training. But in reality, owners and staff members don't find that exciting. 100%. Truthfully, I don't either. It's not the best environment to learn. I recommend on the fly or in flight role playing because it gets people on their toes. And that's where they get better at reacting. And because that's how they're going to be reacting in an actual sales encounter or sales environment. This like on the fly, really quick role play of saying, Dave, take me on a tour. Dave, sell me a membership. Tell me our prices. And on the fly, you've got that flight or flight moment, and there's no risk here. You're just talking to your owner. You're just talking to the studio manager. It's okay if you miss because there's where the trust gets built because now the owner can say, awesome, I love what you did here. Let's work on this a little bit. Here's what I'd recommend. Or better yet, Dave, how do you think that went? Do you think I'd buy? Or do you think I'd walk? So, and really having that easy coaching conversation, those easy development tools, because this is not just for fitness sales. This is how to influence people positively, of course, but influence people in life and be a leader. So this is skills that are going to be used well beyond their tenure at the business or even outside the four walls.
So there's a couple things I want to hit on there. First off, I love the strategy because it makes sense. Like if we say, hey, Tuesday, 12 o'clock, we're doing our sales training, it could probably create some stress for some people, like knowing that this thing is coming up versus it's like, hey, John, you got 5 minutes? And I'm like, hey, run me through your sales, like your sales process right now. Pretend I'm a prospect. They're like, okay, don't worry about it. No pressure. And it makes it easy for them to like just run through it. So I totally love that idea there. But how do you mentioned a good piece there, which is sometimes the teams are just not motivated towards like sales. Like I'm a coach. I like training people, right? Do you have like a suggested approach to how to get someone bought into caring about this kind of thing for the business?
Yeah. Not everyone is a salesperson. Mm-hmm. I think 25 years ago, I uttered those words as well too, to say, I'm not a salesperson. I'm a trainer. I just want to work you out. My anecdote here is imagine getting cornered at a barbecue with a personal trainer and you just happen to mention that you're on a fitness journey. You're not going to be able to shake that personal trainer for the entire barbecue. You're going to be stuck and you're going to be cornered on the porch with them for at least 90 minutes. And they will tell you how to train, what to eat, how to recover. They will give you all of the recommendations. So I like to take that and say, all right, coach that doesn't want to sell, can you just recommend? Please recommend our most flexible option. And then throw me a softball and hand it back to me. If I'm in the studio, fantastic. Come grab me. If I'm not in the studio, get a time that I can follow up with that member or that lead. Throw me a softball because then now I can pick up the ball and run with it. Because Dave told me that the month-to-month option or our premium plan is the best. I'm going to run over those options with you. And then there's congruency in what they heard from the subject matter expert or the fitness provider to that salesperson. Most coaches, most trainers will be totally on board with that because the fear of rejection is gone. We've eliminated that just by design. And now it becomes my problem. If I don't sell them, it's my problem. Of course, we can always tighten up that process, but I think we just want them to act like coaches. We want them to act like personal trainers, even in every interaction, not just when they're with a client or in a class. They have to be coaches. They have to be trainers outside that experience or session.
I think it's also just important to like always tie it back into their own motivations. If you're a trainer or coach, like you obviously like to help people and have like a physical transformation and stuff like that. And it's like, if this person doesn't make a financial commitment, they're probably never going to get that change that they're looking for. Like you're doing them a disservice by not helping them to get over that leap that they've probably been dabbling for like years and years upon end.
Yeah. This is what you do. This is what you do as a coach. This is what you do as a trainer. You want people to see results. And that's likely why you got into this business. So make it happen. I know that sounds, really simplistic, but share that knowledge with them. And the more information that they have, the easier it is for somebody to come in and offer up the assist, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Taking a step back and talking about some of like the most successful studios that you see out there, maybe just like a great success story, but has there been anybody that pops up in your mind? Like maybe they had incredible growth during a time period. And it was just maybe they did something a little bit different, because I think people come like when they hear these things, they're always looking for that gold nugget. Like, what's that tactic that I haven't heard of before that I want to go try? Does anything stand out like that for you with any studios across the board that worked well for them?
Yeah, yes, 100%. A studio was struggling with sales, was really almost like 1, 2 plus per month, um, which like is still growth, but not, like why are we in this business? And he was struggling. He was just, at his wit's end a little bit, wasn't sure what the future of the studio looked like. Had some staff that were feeding him alternative truths, alternative facts on what was happening with process. So I really just got him to go, all right, are you committing to this? Like, is this it? Or are you going to commit to working on the business? Are you going to commit to growing the business? Or are you going to throw in the towel? It's a tough conversation, and it's a tough realization for some studio owners to kind of have. But as a consultant, I'm coming in from a consultant, I have to get them to think this, because if they're not there, it's going to be harder for them to come with me, and then I would essentially fail. So we agreed that it was systems in the studio. So of just really dissecting what was happening in the studio before we added a huge lead generation element, because we didn't want it to be in the funnel and directly out the bottom without anybody getting touched or having that sales conversation or that true experience. So we really fixed those systems in the studio. He committed to on the fly role plays. He committed to having tough conversations with some of the staff members if their future was with that studio or not. He committed to ensuring that everybody knew what would happen when a new guest walked into the studio on their first visit. He knew, he had the confidence in their staff's ability to have the follow-up and have that post-class conversation. He felt confident in the certain number of coaches that he had that were doing the recommendations, and understanding that if he had that sales gun in the studio at that time, that they would play the assist. So everyone had a role. Everyone knew what their role was depending on who they were working with. I did say, like, you're Julie, the cruise director, when you're there. And if you're not there, you have to designate somebody who is Julie, the cruise director. And I just dated myself with that. But somebody else is Julie, the cruise director, and that's the person who's going to play the assist. Everyone's role is to grow the studio. That's the lifeblood of the strength of the studio. So why wouldn't it be everybody's role? Once he got everybody on board, once he got systems built, then we implemented a lead generation strategy that we were confident that we knew that they were going to go through the process, and then we can start to grow the membership. And then we started to see high teens. Then we started to see low 20s of net member movement, and it was a success. But it wasn't an overnight process. We're looking at 5 to 6 months to weed out some of the staff members that weren't players, build the systems, get everybody on board, and then also implement a lead generation strategy.
How often do you find that the owner's thinking, it's like, my problem is my leads, I need more of them, I need better quality ones, and you're like, no, it isn't. It's everything else over here.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a number, but maybe I could maybe say half the time. It's easy to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit on that, because we go, cool, you've had all of these leads, but how many are you leaving on the table? And once you start to pull numbers, and numbers don't lie, unfortunately, sometimes they do tell a bit of a different story, but numbers, we can't fight with numbers like in general. So if numbers are, you're leaving a lot of potentials on the table and a small result or small return at the bottom of the funnel, I think that it is a bit of it's an ugly mirror sometimes, and some people don't want to see that ugly mirror. But once we break that down and actually have some visibility to those numbers, getting these owners to know where to find that and then where they're at benchmarked wise, I think that can really create buy-in for a business owner or even a studio manager.
Yeah, it's so true. Like once we simplify our numbers of the numbers that we need to pay attention to, it's like, okay, which one of these are way out of KPI? That's probably the area we have to go focus first. And let's just put a process in place and just continuously work at the process, practice the process to make sure that we're doing the right things in that situation to improve it. A lot of times it is just sales process, right? Obviously, some of it's follow process, making sure that the leads we're getting, we're actually getting them in the door. But then it's like, what are you doing once this person's actually in here? Are we doing something to try to drive a conversion, make sure they have the good positive experience they need to have? Asking for the sale, of course.
Sounds so simple.
We've been going for a bit here, so you know what? I'm going to close it with one quick question here for you. If you could give gym owners advice for long-term success, and they're like long-term success here, what would it be?
Sweat the small stuff. Look at the details, because your leads are looking at the details. Your members are looking at the details. And it does sound like a bit of an epic task, but it's okay to dive into the details and figure out, when we can look at KPIs and when we can look at these numbers, if everything else is firing to a benchmark, but there's one thing that's not working and you can't figure it out, you've got to dig deeper. It's like an onion. Like when we're talking to a potential lead or a potential client, they're an onion and we want to peel back the onion. If you're not getting the answer by the first peel, like we've got to peel again. So find those details. People are, like I said, your members are looking for the details. Your staff is looking for the details. Chances are your accountant is looking for the details as well too. Vendors are looking for details. So like they will all feel the difference if the like sweating the small stuff starts from the beginning. And they will really recognize that it's an intangible benefit or an intangible difference that they may not be able to put their finger on to say, like, this is different. This feels different. The member is going to say, yeah, I don't know if I really want to leave. It's getting expensive, or I moved 10 minutes further away. I don't know if I really want to continue, but this feels different. The staff member is going to say, this feels different. And when I had a rough week and I don't know if I want to continue anymore, I think about that and go, well, this is different. Or they try to test the waters and they go, yes. Somebody had it, like they knew what they were doing because of those details. I think it's going to be intangible. It will be tangible as well too, but most everyone will feel the difference for the better.
Quick second question on that. How do you balance sweating the small stuff and getting in the weeds?
Oof, and ebbs and flows for the week. Find the details. Yeah, that's a really good question. Getting in the weeds is looking at every single detail. Sweating the small stuff is finding the things that matter. So if we can really dissect, or at least let those things that truly matter bubble up to the surface, and in operations, we want to look at people, we want to look at process, I want to look at member experience, and those are the things that are going to keep my business churning. So that product, the process, and the people, if I can keep those churning, those are the details that I should be concerned about. I shouldn't be concerned about what's happening in the parking lot. And there's to-go cups blowing through the parking lot. That's not the detail that I want to pay attention to. I think things that are controllable for us and that matter to others are the details that we should not allow ourselves to get in the weeds with.
Fair. Yeah, and I think it's important. It's like, it's okay to get in the weeds, just don't live in them.
Yes. Yeah. We're not muskrats here.
Well, Rayme, this has been awesome. I really appreciate having you on here. If anybody wanted to chat with you, reach out to you, have a conversation or anything like that, what would be the best way that they can get a hold of you?
So absolutely, they can reach out to me via email. So it's just rgorniak at f45hq.com, or they can find me on socials at Rayme Gorniak on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, Rayme, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Really appreciate our time together.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Dave.